So herein lies the million-dollar question. When will life get back to normal? So that question was proposed to me today in a conversation, and my response to it was, let's hope that we don't go back to normal, at least not the normal that we came from. Because the normal that we came from, the status quo from which we came from, is the very thing that led us to this place that we are today. And so our conversation went further, and it went into the archetype of the hero's journey. And how that came in was I was thinking about like where we were in this process. And truly the process has just begun. And I think for some of us, we're definitely feeling the effects of it. For others, I think it's kind of still in shock, even though it's happening. It's like when some crisis comes and you know the reality of what has happened, but you really haven't felt the full depth that this situation is about to bring. And I feel like that's kind of where we're at right now. And so it's hard to know how to navigate that because we're not quite sure what we feel. And fear may be one of them, of course, but yet, when we're being guided by or being run by something that is running us, it's really hard to understand and know what we truly feel because of the overriding implications of what we're presently trying to survive under. So if we look at the astrology of this, and as an astrologer, I can't help from looking at it. It's just kind of how I navigate things and how I understand timing and how I understand the why to many things. It's like this astrology has been telling us that something catastrophic was going to be happening, that we were going to be experiencing some type of not just dismantling or deconstruction, but really some type of annihilation. And when I use that word, I don't want you to go and run with fear on that word of annihilation, but annihilation is when is a death, right? It's a form of a death and a rebirth because we have to annihilate something in order for something new to come out of it. That's alchemy. And so in the process of alchemy, it can be a very painful process. We have the alchemical process of one thing changing to another, and in that comes the pain, and comes the uncertainty, and comes the unknown of what's going to come out on the other end. Am I going to make it out of the other end? And so going back to the archetype story of the hero's journey, the hero goes and sets out on his journey and it wants to make its life different, and then it gets thrown into this stage called the belly of the whale. And in the belly of the whale, think about that, symbolically, it's like a giant whale and an individual being in the belly of a whale getting tossed around, like Nemo, right? The story Nemo, and there's all these things happening within that belly of the whale, and there's so much uncertainty. Am I going to get out? Am I ever going to get out? Am I going to survive this place that I'm in? And so that's a part of where we're heading into here is, and it's, think about the belly of the whale. There's a lot of isolation in that. And that's what we're being asked to do right now. We're being asked to isolate. We're being asked to disconnect from the ways in which we have been connected. We're being asked to unplug from the ways in which we have been plugged into. And so what we're doing is we're a species, right? Like any other species. So we're going to find a way to adapt. And I've heard some stuff going on where people have adapted in very shallow ways. Okay, that's their journey. But those of us who are probably listening to this and who want to have a different experience are going to hopefully self-reflect. That's what we want to do. We want to self-reflect. We want to be able to have hope. We want to be able to have trust in this time of uncertainty. And, Pema Chodron has a book called Being Comfortable with Uncertainty. And I've always loved the title of the book, and the book itself is an amazing book, but that's really part of, very much of Buddhist principles of how we stay in samsara, how we stay in that cycle of suffering, because we are unable to be with the uncertainty of life, with not wanting to have to control it. So going back to, when will life go back to normal? So let's all pray that we don't go back to normal in the old way, because that's what got us here in the first place. And so before I end this, I want to bring in one other thing that's super, super powerful and important and really at the core of all of this. And this is the concept that all is one. which is a very deep universal truth that we are all one. And this is what I'm looking at, is the beginning of that step off to become more, not just united, because united feels so human, but more connected, more that to understand that how the importance of all of us taking care of our fellow man is so important. This virus is not hitting one race, it's not hitting a gender, it's not hitting just one country. It is spreading throughout, and that in itself is important to see that symbolically, metaphorically. There is no socioeconomic group that is immune from this, and that is part of this patriarchal hierarchy that is presently trying to dismantle. And so while we can break something down, how this something is rebuilt is so crucial. Think about it as a first chakra, like the roots. It's like we are being torn from the roots, and in order for us to come out of this and build something upon, build something upon each structure that needs to be in alignment, in congruency with the other, it is so important that we stay as mindful, stay as present, stay as hopeful and conscious through this process, and take this isolation time to look deeper into what you as an individual, what shadow aspects need to be looked at. Where is your faith? What is your belief? Do you have a belief? And this isn't about a religion belief. This is about a universal life, spiritual belief in which there are universal law, and which goes, in my opinion, beyond moral law. This is universal law when it comes to how we treat each other as human beings, with disregard of what gender, what race, what country, what political affiliation, what socioeconomic level you're at. All is one, universal, a universal truth. So important for us to take this time and use it in the many different ways that possibly feel uncomfortable, because we are getting uncomfortable, and we are going to actually become more uncomfortable through this process, because that's what transformation does. That's what a process like this enters us into and takes us through. So where will you be on the in the experience of this? Will you shut it out? Wait till it's over? When is this going to be done? One of my mentors said, if ever you're asking when something is going to be done that you're going through, you're not doing the work. And I love that. And it's not that we don't sometimes inquire, like, oh my God, is this ever going to end? But if we get caught up in, when is this going to be over? When is this going to be over? Then we have totally missed the whole point. We have missed the point. So please don't miss the point, because we don't want to create and continue a sort of virus within our lives. And I mean that from a symbolic place, not the literal place of the virus itself. But think about what a virus is. A virus can be insidious, and it will just, when we have a virus in our body, it's like we have to allow it to run its course. So we don't want to be on the shadow side of that as we move through this process, and do our best to stay in a place of presence, and to stay as connected to what feels most important to us. And that's part of what we're finding out here, is what feels most important to us. What do we value? And have I been living by those values? Am I aligning with that? And it's just, I'm looking out for me. It's about, we need to look out for each other. All is one. That's the mystical truth. That's the universal truth. All is one. Thank you for listening. I hope this was of some help for you. Namaste.